Well, good morning, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here at the Ruttenberg Library. I wanted to come to you today with a Historathon 2023 pile of possibilities. So if you guys are not familiar with Historathon 2023, this is a reading adventure that is all based on reading history, nonfiction history. And this was all put together by Vin at Revenant Reads, and there are several of us that are co-hosting this event. I felt very honored to be asked to be a co-host, and so I've been very, very quiet in our Voxer and our Discord conversations, because in the first quarter of the year, what we are set to read is history books from prehistory up to 500 AD. And those of you that follow the channel know that that's not in my wheelhouse. I have very, very little reading experience in this time period. And so when I was digging on my shelves at school, I found a pile of 7 books that would go very well with this, in this time period. And I thought maybe I would show those to you. And it was by pure luck that I even found them, because I honestly just forgot that I had them. My 6th graders are getting ready to work on a project dealing with the civil rights movement. And so I literally was just scanning my shelves looking for book resources that I could pull out for them to use. And my shelves at school are just loaded down with books that I have found at garage sales, books that I found at auctions, books that I found at used bookstores, library discards, some from my own personal collection that I've put in there. Some of them I have used school money and bought, certain books. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of many different kinds of books spanning the historical timeline. And so, like I said, I was looking for those civil rights books, and as I was going through there, me being the disorganized person that I am, there is really no rhyme or reason to why they're put on the shelves. It's probably more for size, so that I can, fit as many into a shelf as I can and try to maximize my space on my shelves. That's probably the only rhyme or reason to how they go on the shelf. They're not in Dewey Decimal order, author order, subject order, or anything like that. So as I'm going through looking for civil rights books, I found all of these early history books. And so, I just wanted to present those to you. And by the way, Historathon 2023 is open to anyone out there who's wanting to participate in reading non-history fiction, or non-fiction history. Fiction has nothing to do with it. Non-fiction history. It's supposed to be a reading initiative to, encourage people to pick up books that maybe they aren't typically comfortable with. Maybe it's out of their wheelhouse. And so that's what I'm doing here. And again, Historathon has been broken up into quarters, into 3-month segments. And so the first quarter, from January to March, is prehistory to 500. From April to June is 500 to 1500 AD, and then from July through September is 1500 to 1820, and then at the end of the year, October through December, is 1820 to the present. And so this pile of possibilities is going to be all for the first quarter here. And so I wanted to share those with you. I have a couple of them I'm already in the middle of, and I just found these. I got excited about maybe reading these as well, or at least maybe a couple of them. So let me get to the books here. So the first one I found on this shelf for this pile of possibilities is called Stonehenge Decoded by Gerald Hawkins in collaboration with John B. White. And this is an illustrated book. It's got tons of photos in it. And most of these books, I will add, since I'm a bit of a scavenger when it comes to books, I don't like to see them I don't like to see books go to their deaths. So I tend to put them on my shelves at school so that maybe they have a second life. And so I do realize a lot of these are dated. Some of the information may be out of date, but that's okay, because I'm a novice and I have no clue when it comes to this time period of history. So this will be a good starting point for me to explore these topics. So anyway, Stonehenge Decoded, and I'm pretty excited about that. This is a book that comes from the year, it's a Delta book and comes from 1965. So yeah, it's a little dated. They've found some stuff since then, but that's okay. The back of the book says, this brilliant and readable study challenges the notion that the 3,500-year-old Stonehenge was a Druid temple and concludes that it was actually a sophisticated astronomical observatory. In fact, a Neolithic computer designed to predict eclipses. Astronomers and archaeologists, as well as the general reader, will be fascinated by Professor Hawkins' account of decoding in the ancient monument by modern computer, and thus unraveling one of history's greatest mysteries. Gerald S. Hawkins is a professor of astronomy at Boston University and a research associate at Harvard College Observatory. John B. White is an editor and exhibits arranger for the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory. So you got two big names there, or they got big jobs anyway. And so I know they found a lot of stuff at Stonehenge since this was published, but I thought this would be a good jump off spot to get some ideas about Stonehenge. I recently read a National Geographic book about the 100 greatest archaeological discoveries, and Stonehenge was in there, and it was talking about some recent stuff that they found. It was very interesting. All right, so this next book, it goes with the subject, but it doesn't go with the subject, because it's actually a biography on LSB Louis Leakey, and that would make it more modern in our modern times. But it's talking about his life's work, which would be in the prehistory era. So this is called "Digging Up Adam: The Story of LSB Leakey," a fascinating look at the life and work of a dedicated anthropologist. And this is by, is it Mina White Mulvey, or Mina White Mulvey? I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. But this book comes from David McKay Company, and it is a 1969 book. Again, fairly aged. Sorry, I guess I didn't show the cover. Fairly aged, but I think it would probably give some good starting points for Louis Leakey. So it says, this is the first biography of one of the most important, colorful, and controversial of present-day anthropologists. Dr. Leakey's finds have revolutionized theories on man's origins. Louis Sebastian Bassett Leakey was born in Kibet, Kenya, the son of British missionaries to the Kikuyu tribe. He grew up thinking, speaking, and even dreaming in Kikuyu, and at 13 was initiated into the tribe. His interest in prehistory aroused by a book he had read as a child. He studied anthropology and archaeology at Cambridge University and then returned to Africa to look for traces of early man. A major target on his search was Olduvai Gorge. Here and at other sites in East Africa, over the next 30 years, he and his wife Mary worked under incredibly difficult and often dangerous conditions and made discoveries of outstanding importance, including a fossil ape, proconsul, believed to be close to the human line. During this time, he earned his living as a museum curator and government consultant in such diverse fields as African culture, handwriting, and intelligence work. When the Mau Mau terror broke out, his knowledge of the Kikuyu helped suppress the revolt. And by the way, I'm fully aware I'm probably not doing a very good job of pronouncing these names, and I do apologize. Let me finish up here. In 1959, the years following Dr. Leakey's discovery startled the scientific world. These finds not only made him world famous, but they brought him into conflict with other scientists and over the meaning of the finds for human evolution, and they embroiled him in bitter controversies. Digging Up Adam not only tells the story of Louis Leakey's adventurous career, but explains the present state of our knowledge about man's origins and the implications these have for the future. So, thought that'd be interesting. The Leakey family was big obviously in archaeology, and so just interesting to add to my knowledge there. The next one is, and I'm very interested in this, is called Women's Work, the First 20,000 Years, Women, Cloth, and Society in Early Times by Elizabeth Wayland Barber. And this book's in pretty good shape considering it's used. It was one of those library discards that came out of our school library, and I snatched it up from my classroom. And I would say probably the reason that it got discarded is it only got checked out one time. That's just how it goes sometimes. Bought the book with good intentions and nobody read it. So this is from W.W. Norton and Company, and it's a 1994 book. But like I said, I thought it sounded very fascinating. It is, let's see. I don't know if I want to read the entire thing. It's quite a bit. Well, I'll start it off here. It says, Women's Work, the First 20,000 Years. So 2,500 years ago, the women of Athens worked at home, virtual prisoners of their husbands, expected to provide cloth and clothing for the family. 4,000 years ago in ancient Mesopotamia, there was a very different picture. Respectable women were in business for themselves, weaving textiles at home to be sold abroad for gold and silver. Looking back even further to 20,000 years ago, women began making and wearing the first clothing created from spun fibers, string skirts that announced to all a woman's ability to bear children. Indeed, over 20,000 years ago, until the Industrial Revolution, the fiber arts were an enormous economic force belonging primarily to women. Throughout early history, this art was the primary vehicle for articulating a woman's various roles as mother, provider, worker, entrepreneur, and artist, and was a virtual force for self-definition, early steps to creative expression. Modern women searching for their roots will not find this part of themselves in most history and archaeology books. Much of the gap of information results from the extreme perishability of what women generally produced, food and clothing. These objects do not survive the wear of time, as well as houses, tombs, temples, stone sculpture, and other usual artifacts of archaeology. Thus, in most books on ancient history and economics, there isn't even an index entry for cloth or clothing, despite the enormous toil required in making them. Well may women object. Economic studies that omit half the economy, which happens to be the female-produced half, are skewed. Fortunately, archaeological methods of recovering information have been improving rapidly, and we may get the full story not only of our economic development, but of the evolution of women's art and place in society. Author Elizabeth Wayland Barber has drawn from data gathered by the most sophisticated new methods of studying the past, methods she herself helped to fashion, shaping a wealth of new information on one woman's most important contributions to past societies, textiles. Her widely acclaimed monumental study of the technical development of the craft appeared recently in her book, Prehistoric Textiles. In this work, the author presents the untold human side of that story, the relations of women and their textile work to society and economics over the huge span of prehistoric and early historic times. We see women at their work in prehistory and ancient Greece and are provided an unprecedented and intimate look at their daily life. We learn of the growth of the textile industry, of fashion, ancient custom, and we reclaim an essential part of the human history forged by women. So a nice piece of women's history for the first quarter of Historathon. Next couple, well, no, just this next one, is a little bit of Egyptian history, and this is on Tutankhamun, and it is a basic, coffee table type book. It's not real big, but it is chock full of pictures from the tomb, and you guys have seen books like this but you notice the pictures in there. They're wonderful. If I can get the page to turn. There we go. All kinds of good stuff in this. I'm not going to go through the whole book. You get the idea. And with that many pictures, I think you could probably read this fairly quick. And I thought that'd be pretty good because, like I said, my knowledge in this era is next to nothing. And so reading these coffee table type books is probably not going to hurt me at all. This is from the New York Graphic Society. And it is this is the 11th printing. It's originally a 1963 book. This one was printed in 1978. So that'll be, I think, a lot of fun to look at, looking at all the stuff they found from the tomb. These next couple are, well, actually, let's do one more Egyptian. We did have one more Egyptian. This is the Pyramids and the Sphinx. And again, a big old coffee table type book. But for a novice like me, this would be something that would definitely help me. This is from Newsweek out of New York. It's a 1971 book. And it looks like it is from a series called Wonders of Man. Wonders of Man. And again, see if I can find a couple of the pictures right fast. You know, just full of pictures on the pyramids, the Sphinx, all kinds of stuff dealing with Egypt, where my knowledge is very, very limited. And so this one does have a little bit more reading in it, it looks like, but something that still could be probably read fairly quick. Now, the next two books, the last two, are dealing with lost cities, because I'm just fascinated by that. I think it's really neat. I'm not well read at all, but just the idea of finding an entire city that has never been, found before, that there's something about that tickles my imagination. And so the first one that I pulled off the shelf was Finding the Lost Cities by Rebecca Staffoff. Okay, and this is let's see here. Oxford University Press, and it is from 1997, it looks like. Actually, this printing's 1998. Originally 97, but this is from 98. But anyway, you can look at the table of contents there and get an idea of all the cities that are going to be covered in this. And, some of the ones that really... that I kind of get interested in, that fascinate me: Petra and Angkor. Let's see, Machu Picchu. There's three of them that really they just strike an interest with me for some reason, and I think they're pretty fascinating. Machu Picchu really fascinates me simply because of my wife's grandfather got to take a trip there. He would put together traveling trips for people, and he would lead the trip, and he got to go all over the world, and he was a world traveler, and Machu Picchu was one of those areas that he got to go to. And so, it strikes an interest with me. But anyway, how you build a city that high up in the mountains, I'll never know. A lot of labor involved there. But anyway, that looked like an interesting find. And then the other one, the last one in this stack for possibilities for the first quarter of Historathon 2023, is The Atlas of Lost Cities, Legendary Cities Rediscovered by Brenda Rosen. And it's a nice little book. This comes from... it's a Godsfield book, and it was printed, let's see, the year 2007. So this one's a little bit newer compared to those other ones, but it has, this actually breaks it into categories. In this book, it's got cities of the sea, cities of the desert and plains, cities of the hills and mountains, cities of the jungles and forests, cities of kings, queens, and emperors, and then sacred cities. So it kind of breaks it into groupings, and it just does a little bit about each city. So I think, it's like 2 pages, so it's not even a whole lot. It's just a little snapshot. So there's Mohendaro. And then it had Tenoctolon. Again, I know I'm probably mispronouncing those. I do apologize, but it hits all the major, the major cities here. There's Machu Picchu again. But anyway, I thought these all sounded like, good challenges for myself as possibilities for Historathon 2023. I thought these would be good, and I wanted to share them with you because if I end up reading them, I'd like you to go along on the journey. If you're looking for different books for that first quarter of the year, I wanted to give you some options, so let you see what I plan on possibly picking up. I know I'll pick up at least a couple of them. But anyway, BookTube, I hope this is maybe gave you some ideas for, different reads. So anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for participating if you're participating. And if you're not, I advise you to give it a try. It's definitely a way of expanding your reading knowledge and getting you so that you are comfortable with this material and finding new interests. And then also I highly suggest people get involved in the Voxer group that we've got, and then get involved in the Discord. Those are absolutely wonderful conversations that are going on. I'm learning a ton of stuff just listening to the dialogue back and forth, the conversations going on back and forth between a whole lot of people who are a lot more well-read in this time period than I am. And so I'm learning a lot, getting a lot of different book recommendations of, different possibilities. And so I would highly recommend anybody out there that's remotely interested, just to give it a try. Give it a try. All you got to do is read one book and you're participating. Read one book that's from that time period. And really, if you read no nonfiction at all, if you were to read one book all year, we're going to count that as a success. But if you read one nonfiction book all year and you're not used to reading it, that is a success. But anyway, BookTube, like I said, thank you for watching. Thank you to all the new subscribers out there. I appreciate your support. So until next time, happy reading.